A second.
Peter, okay. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Abstain. I wasn't present.
Well, March 27th, 2018.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the March 27th meeting minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And April 3rd, 2018.
Make a motion to accept it.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That takes care of the minutes. Next thing are budget transfers. First one is, let's see, transfer amount of $2,500 from unemployment to town hall for corroded pipes that must be replaced. And not enough funds left in the town annex account to cover the repairs. Do I have a
I'll make a motion to
Motion.
approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we'll give it to Peter. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And let's see. Okay.
I need to borrow your pen.
Yeah, yeah.
Right where your name is.
Okay, second transfer is $2,000 from unemployment to the town hall annex expense.
Just a question. The first one says minus 31140 balance before transfer, and then this one balance before transfer 632.
Two different budgets. One's town hall, one's town hall annex.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yep.
So where'd you get
Right.
the $2,000?
This came up on the
Transfer amount.
inspection.
From where? Which one are you
Travis.
looking at?
No, I just did. I thought it was the same building.
Because I'm looking at,
No,
I don't
it's
see
just one's
2,000. Oh,
only
you,
both-
you,
Both
Same thing,
system-
yeah.
it
2,000
was
from
the same
unemployment
issue
to
that came
town,
up on
that's
the
town hall,
inspection.
that's the one we just signed. Go to the next page. Town hall annex,
and that's 2,000?
right.
Oh, okay.
I make a motion that we approve the transfer.
Okay, I have a motion.
I'll
Yeah.
second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. last one is transfer of $640 from administrative assistant wages, line 5, to assistant town administrator salaries, line 4. Just an error in the first week. It should have been 1 week instead of 1 day. We have a motion to approve the transfer.
I'll make the motion.
Have a
Second.
motion, second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Oh, gosh. He's.
Did you anticipate any other budget transfers that might be coming down the line, or
I'm not sure yet, this one from the library, but,
Oh, thank you.
pretty much that's it,
hopefully,
yeah?
everything's on track.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Takes care of the transfers. Next thing, discuss the fiscal 19 revised Triton budget assessment. I think we all got copies of it. Uh, Their new revised budget has a total recommended reductions of $664,396. I don't know whether you got the changes to the final budget. Okay. But of that 664,000, 175,000 is a increase in revenue. That basically they're assuming additional monies coming in, so the actual reductions, as far as what their budget and not guesstimations are concerned, is 500,000. Yes.
So whatever happened to scenario 2 that they had at town meeting, that, you know, they would have brought it down to 400 and something thousand?
They didn't want to,
I
they
mean,
didn't think that what the school committee voted on, they said that that wasn't gonna be, they would be drastically cutting the programs if they did that, and they weren't gonna go there, so they decided on this middle.
But
range
but
and
the big
stuff.
discussion during this whole project, because I'm kind of upset, and I'm sure a lot of other people as well too, is that, you know, there's gonna be drastic
Well,
cuts and
I guess the other thing
teachers and
is that
stuff, and
they
I don't
think
see any
is
of
that, they
Right.
think, so Salisbury pretty much says that they would go along with $800,000 change, so now, like Brian Forget figures, because they already got, Newberry's approval, if Salisbury is gonna say 800,000, now they're at that number that they, you know, that's what they felt like they had to chop down to, and then that's why they didn't go further than that, because of this additional information that Brian Forget and the school committee have to work with.
All depends on whether Salisbury can find the money.
Well, what's his name? Who's the manager
Harrington.
over there? Harry, he said that they can do 800,000, so. Oh,
They're probably gonna have to make cuts in various departments too.
Right.
They don't get an
Well, the
override.
big discussion of the day was to talk about the rainy fund. You know, they said that Raleigh had $1.9 million rainy
don't.
fund, and that, well, because we already spent a lot of it, I know from the
Right.
last thing, you're right, we don't now. And Salisbury, they said, had $1.3 million, you know, in their rainy day fund. So, I
It's
don't
not
know,
really.
you know. But, I don't know, that's, I'm
don't
just
know.
answering the question, what,
Yeah.
you know,
My problem
always,
with
you
the whole
know.
thing is that the town really voted no to Truton.
Exactly.
Mhm.
You
They
know,
said
it's,
no. And here we are paying it.
Well, we don't know what's gonna happen, if it's gonna
But
go through
my,
or not.
my
Well-
concern too is that if, because I was in the set mind of saying, let's go back for an override, and vote, give it back to the voters again. But my understanding is that if you can't go more than twice, the state comes in and sets the budgets. I mean, I don't understand that, why can't,
well,
you know,
we
the
could,
voters say no again, or yes, or whatever they wanna do.
they can still say no
They can
at
still
the
say no.
town meeting. Okay.
But then we may get burnt because if the state comes in, and I'm not sure if I'm speaking correctly, that's why, if somebody can correct me, that
Well,
could the state come in and actually make the budget higher, or whatever they want?
So if you
right.
don't do it by June 30th, or you don't have the town, if you don't have a town meeting to address this now, then by default, it's an agreement to pay it. But we do need to adjust the appropriation in that budget.
Right.
Otherwise, if two towns continue to not approve this budget, the Department of Education will come in and set the budget. And there's an assumption that they're predisposed to set it in favor of what's presented by.
Well, because they'll set the budget by adding to anything that, you know, that they need, like special education, anything more that's gonna, you know, is gonna increase.
Well, we don't
They're gonna
know
do
what
a
they would do.
zero-based budget, but then they're gonna add these other things that are mandated by the state. Because you can't just say, okay, I'm gonna ignore something that's the state saying that you have to pay for. So the budget will be set as zero-based, and it will include these other things that, and whatever that amount is, that's what I think is gonna happen. I mean, this is, Brian Forget wasn't exactly sure because it's never happened under his watch, but that's what they surmise.
I mean,
something
Well,
to that,
we don't
you know,
really know,
from,
because I don't know if there's any precedent that's ever been set as far as this going to the state and the state setting.
But you can be sure
A
they're gonna
budget.
include those items that the state is mandating.
Well,
to
yes,
pay
but they
for right
also
now
should
from,
take into consideration that two of the three towns, you know, voted the override no.
Mhm.
And we'll say maybe at the second town meeting, if both Raleigh and Salisbury vote again no, you know, it's pretty obvious that the two of the three towns don't want the override.
I mean, we did vote a budget for Triton.
Right.
You know, it was our number, so they do have money to operate next year up to that point, so to speak. So that's where, I guess, I just need clarification as to, is it the state that says June 30th they're gonna,
Well, if we don't have a town meeting to address, now they've officially resubmitted the budget, the certified budget. This is not the certified budget, it's being transmitted by their treasurer to our treasurer. That's the process.
We have like 45 days.
Correct, and I understand that, and I think what Peter's saying is probably what's the case, that they're looking to find the money and having a town meeting on June 30th. So we have, now that we have the new budget, the selectmen are obligated to call the town meeting to present it, and we've found a way, and I can address another item in your packet, to try to cover this and get this funded, unfortunately, because it's, yes, the school committee voted again, and they heard the message from the town of Raleigh, but whether or not that was taken into consideration, the decision, I don't think so, because they didn't vote and follow what the will of the people
I
were.
attended the meetings, I know that they said that would be too drastic, and one of them spoke out, I think Paul Wheatley's, and a few of them, they says, we can't accept anything lower than this amount, we're not gonna go there. So they said that this is, they were putting their figures in based on, you know, a better optimistic numbers of what Salisbury said that they can afford, and they're gonna, that's how I think they're working working the budget now.
And they don't care that Raleigh may lose firefighters or a police captain or snow and ice money or anything like that.
Exactly.
They don't care.
No, the whole point was that the school committee asked for the override because of their budget. The selectmen in the 3 towns put the override on. The results came in that 2 of the towns didn't support the override. So I thought that that would follow the logic by what the majority of the voters in the school district said, and it didn't. That budget plan that they resubmitted was not only in excess of what their planned budget B version,
Yep.
it's higher. So it's about 100,000 higher.
90,000, yeah.
So I worked yesterday with the fiscal department heads and came up with some scenarios that would prevent any layoffs in the next fiscal year. But I also say in this item in your packet that I'm already on to fiscal 20, and I really think that that's where we need to go, because if there's going to be issues, it's going to be in 20. And it could be very serious for the town of Rowley. And we need to know immediately what the cost of the year 3 of their contracts. They have various unions. What are their wage increases? Because if the wage increases are at $1 million plus, that plateau from 19 is going up higher.
That's one of the,
So
that's
I
one
think,
of the,
I think we found a solution for this year, but I really need the leaders of the towns to start looking at
that's what I
how we're
told
gonna-
Brian Forget. I mentioned it many times. I mentioned that, when you have 80% of your costs as salaries, and if you're doing 2.5, because they got 2.5 this year, I mean, if we're gotta, something's gotta give, because we can't continually be on this pace, with the,
And the teachers didn't just get 2.5%.
they got 2.75
Then they got
this
steps
year.
on top of that.
Well, I know, but
And I
the
mean, some
steps-
of them came like to about 7 or 8%.
Well, yeah,
They have a lot
Which
of
is
steps.
nice. I would have liked that.
well, I mean, that's why I think that realistically, they shouldn't be giving themselves more than a 1.5% cost of living, because when you combine that with the steps,
Yeah.
it brings it up over the,
When I was
2.5.
in public sector there, I remember at least 1 year that we had 0% raises, just to keep track. But my problem here is next year, it's not gonna be any different, because they know that they can dictate whatever number they want. So what's the stop, or how do
Well,
we correct this?
I don't know if I think that Brian Forget is realizing that there's, I mean, this is.
I don't think he
He
is.
didn't realize it for this
You know,
budget.
from,
No, he didn't do it for this
realize
budget.
it
Yeah,
for this
because the
budget.
thing is, they didn't realistically plan out till, if they were to really make cuts, they are really talking about cutting, like 2nd grade, they're talking about taking 2 teachers off, and most
Where's it-
classes are
where's
both
it
gonna
here?
have.
No,
There's no
that,
cuts at all.
There's no
that was
cuts.
Yeah, but
presented.
the other, I
That
know,
was
if they did
presented
in the bottom
in
part,
the
right.
other reviewed reductions.
Right, in the
Not
bottom.
recommended.
Not
okay?
recommended.
They
Yeah.
did go through this list and
But they
say,
did lay off a lot of the instructional assistants on the top. Are they talking about?
Well, they're
some
talking
instructional
about it, okay.
Assistants,
And-
some of the people in the committee were saying, well, we don't want instruction. We think some of the teachers should, absorb some of the cut, because they, and, the question was about special needs and people that are, need more one-on-one. But they were going back and forth on this, so I don't even think the school committee decided exactly where the cuts are gonna be. That's just their initial, what they're putting out there for.
well, they've come up with a recommended reduction of 664,000. How they get to it, okay, they might change what's in there. But at the meeting that they had, okay, on Wednesday, they did discuss the other reviewed reductions, all right, but they did not implement any one of those by saying, okay, recommended reduction 664, let's combine grade 2 at NES and grade 2 at Salisbury, okay, for another 118,000, okay, reduction. There was no additional reductions. This thing was already set in concrete as far as what was going to happen. So
And if they
the
went down.
budget discussion and deliberation wasn't there. There was no budget deliberation. It was, this is it. It's the 664,000, and they disregarded the majority view in Rowley and Salisbury.
Well, I think in Salisbury, it lost like by 12 votes, I know, still.
No, it wasn't
It
12
wasn't, that
votes.
How
wasn't
much
12.
was close?
It was
Over 100.
It
defeated.
was over 100?
Just
Defeated by 56%. 56% of the people.
I thought it was really
Oh.
close, that's what I was told, but.
But then for next year, they're gonna take this year's budget as their baseline,
Right.
Add the
And-
million for those salaries and then.
build
Well,
on top of that.
Hopefully they won't have a big bubble and then jump on their special, on their special education and transportation costs like that. That pushed up everything over $1.2 million, those items alone. So I'm not saying, you're not justifying their budget, because I spoke to Brian Forget about my concerns about the school committee voting those type of, increases, because it's not sustainable, based on, the state is funding, is less and less a percentage is going for Triton, so they, it's, if they don't do something now, this is gonna be really, like Debbie said, it's gonna be crazy for next year and the year after and the year after that. They have to realistically realize that they can't have cost of livings of 2%, 2.5% when they have, 40% of the people on the staff are getting, the steps too.
No, and don't forget, after 11 years, there's longevity packages.
Yeah.
That was in there as well, so it's
Right.
that increase, or obviously over time, up to I think 25 years or so. So that it's not like you just stop and you stay there at that step, you are getting a supplemental adjustment.
This
Then
one-
stipends as
And
well,
then
there's cost of living on stipends.
Yeah, cost of living on type of
I've heard about cost of
stipend.
living on a stipend, but,
Yeah.
so there will be increases, and I know, that's really the concern, and I know, Larry has been meeting with some Salisbury officials, and I think that the best thing is to get together soon and come up with a plan, to address it, because it will, we'll have a problem, and we've said over and over, the two major construction projects that we're undertaking right now, haven't fully hit the tax bills. And they will, very soon. We're well underway in construction, so when that hits, I don't think the voters are gonna go for an override, an operational override to fund the schools. Based on what just happened
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
I know my tax is gonna go up over $1,000 between
You think that,
everything else and everything, yeah.
you think Brian knew about the 175,000 that, on the chapter 70? Because he's got this revenue in, why all of a sudden this is here? I mean, wouldn't you know that up front?
I think that was
You-
based on the legislature's version. Senate version, I think, is.
Did that come
trying
out
to-
later?
Yes, so
Yeah,
they
it was
operate under
recent.
House 1, which comes
Came
out
out.
last week in January, and then when the House, that's the governor's budget, and you get the one from the
I don't think
House.
Brian plays games, he's pretty straightforward.
Well, I mean, my problem is every year, we vote a budget, and then all of a sudden, they get additional money from the state or whatever, and they
That's the
never
way-
give that back to the
Right.
towns.
I
They
think
put, they put the.
that's one of the caveats that we have to come up with, is that that money that gets returned from the state
Should go back to the towns.
has to be credited to the three towns against the next year's assessment. Because it's not Triton's money.
Yeah, because they know
Okay.
every year they're gonna get money, because it's happened every year, that they
Right.
get an X, I don't know how much money they get, but it's a considerable amount. And then all of a sudden, all the cuts that they showed, all of a sudden go back in by priority. The town doesn't get any share of that.
Right.
Triton gets the whole thing.
Although if you, your cash reserves, they pretty much stripped that down and save it into Triton now, if you look at what they say they have left over now, so.
I just don't see
know
how
what-
next year's gonna be, what scenario you can come up with that would make this work. I mean, the only thing is the assessment to the towns, but I'm not even sure that can be done in a year's time.
Well, I don't know about the teacher's contract, because that's for 3 years now,
Yeah,
so
so
I
you
don't
fixed
think
on
any.
those, you
Well,
can't
I
change
think-
those.
I think they're fiscal 19 is year 3, I think, of the contract.
Yeah, I thought there were negotiations last year.
Yeah, I don't think it's
I think
that.
it-
I think they got
Yeah,
another year.
but it wasn't for necessarily fiscal 18. They could have been in,
Without a contract,
Right.
right, yeah.
I think it might be the middle year or something.
I think it's
I
not
think,
2
I
years,
think
but
20, I
whatever.
think it ends in, I think it ends in 20. I'm not,
So,
Hmm.
yeah, Deb, you can explain this, but the selectmen basically, they're not gonna put it on override?
No, they felt that
They're
the
just gonna
people already,
absorb it and that's
would
it.
not vote, the townspeople wouldn't vote for it, would be still in the same place, and I think based on what Peter is saying, that Salisbury said at the school committee meeting,
Yeah.
they were finding the money to pay for
yeah,
it.
they were gonna be able to do 800,000.
But they also
But-
said they were gonna go for an override.
I just think it's a slap in
the
the
last
face.
thing that I heard with Salisbury was that they were going to go for an override, but that decision has been
By the selectmen.
delayed,
Yeah.
yes.
I think it's just a slap in the face to the voters. That,
Oh, it is.
that we're absorbing this and not bringing it back to the voters to let them vote what they want. And whether they, at that point in June, they know that if they vote against it, that the state could come in. I mean, that's gonna be, you know, that they know that ahead of time and they can vote accordingly. But I think, you know, by the overwhelming response of people that, you know, turned the override down, I think they should have went back to them and let it ride and see where it goes.
Right, or
I mean,
if you're gonna keep going back to the voters until you get a yes, which I don't agree with, you should also go back to Newbury, where they voted yes. Maybe they've changed their mind.
You think so?
I don't think they would.
Well, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know, but, you know, why keep going back to the towns that said no, okay, and browbeating them until you get a yes out of one of them, type of a thing. But I mean, it's, things cannot remain the same.
But they will. Because now we've said, you know, we've kind of gone through this process this year. So next year, Triton knows that we'll put a budget in, whatever we want. We'll vote it down, and then they come back and put a number or whatever they want, and then
Well, the only
No, I
thing
think
is
it's gonna be worse next year for something like that to happen.
Def-
because
defeat
of
it a
the
second
exempt
time.
exclusions coming in, it's gonna be basically gonna be in effect, and the taxpayers are gonna really start.
But Triton doesn't
feeling
care
that.
about that. All they care
But-
about
but-
is running the school,
but
which
the
is
bottom line
their,
is-
their job, but
The
still.
bottom line is it has to go to the voters, and the voters have to vote.
And they vote no
definitely
again,
vote.
and then what's Triton do? They come back and change the budget for $1, and then we're forced to do it again. We're forced to
They
pay
can.
for it.
Well,
That's what they can
That's
do.
what they,
I think
you know,
they-
that's why I
I
think
think
this,
they'd be playing with fire if they
No,
do that
they
2
don't
years
Well,
back
they
to
don't
back
care
on the
about fire.
road.
Yeah, you know, who's gonna burn them?
You know.
So-
The,
I mean, my thing is, like, bring it back to the voters, but I mean,
Well-
it's the selectmen have, you know, decided to cut this way,
We are
that's
bringing
fine.
it to town meeting.
Yep.
Which will be filled with people that want the school.
Yeah, I know that. It'll be the same thing, so that'll pass,
now,
and
at
that's
town
fine.
meeting, the finance committee will make a recommendation, correct?
Yep.
So we're not gonna have time for you to have a meeting and have a recommendation printed in a warrant, because I really have no time. A selectman, set the date for June 18th, I know that was the date we floated by in case something happened, if we needed another town meeting, because once again, it's not just Raleigh, it's 2 towns now. And, so that's the date, and I'm working on a warrant. I've been in touch with the town's attorney on working out the article in the Department of Revenue. So, yeah, I
So
have to get it,
why can't we make a recommendation?
because the warrant has to be signed next week and posted by June 4th and copied and mailed and
So
get
why
it.
can't we just put finance committee recommendation from the
So
floor?
that's what I'm gonna put.
Yeah, and then we can do it
Yeah,
that
you
way.
can make a recommendation, it's just not gonna be
Yeah,
able to make
okay.
it
That's
for
what
the
you're saying.
printed version. So you can certainly have a meeting, and discuss the merits of it. And I know it's a very difficult decision, I agree with everything you're saying, Dennis, but I'm looking at it, and looking at it from the point of view of, can we cobble together enough money to do this? I think I've found a way to do it. I don't necessarily agree. I think the voters voted, and the issue isn't the selectmen. I think it's the issue is that the school committee chose to ignore what the people of this town said, the majority, and what the people in Salisbury said. The idea was they asked to put it on an override. The town leaders did in all 3 towns, and 2 of them have said no. So why did they ask us to put it on an override then,
Yeah.
and spend the money and do all this work if they weren't going to respect the decision of that
Right.
vote? And that's an issue, and
That's part
that's a
of the process,
political
though.
issue. So I'm not going to get involved in that, but that's the reality.
But you have to put it on an override, right, if you want to, have a budget that's
Well, they could have
greater
still
than
voted a
2.5%.
budget that, but they did ask, and they understood that their assessment increase was very high, and so they did ask to put it on an override.
Okay.
But we're almost, we're so far high in that assessment still that that's something that the town can't easily absorb. And as I understand, the school committee felt that that was the budget they needed to vote. And here we are today, and without any time at the end of the fiscal year, the clock is ticking, and if we don't have a town meeting by June 30th and vote this, by default, we have to accept it, and if the other town does accept it, then we're stuck with it, but then we have to then have a town meeting to try to appropriate this money anyway, because it becomes basically an unfunded mandate.
Now, you're gonna have at least 2 other things on the warrant, one to pay for the town meeting and the recycling.
Yeah, so if you have a minute, I could maybe explain a couple
Sure.
of things. So Larry asked me to put in an item that was in last night's selectmen's meeting packet, where I came up with different scenarios on how to address this revised Triton budget, and I won't waste everybody's time with it, but just jump to the scenario that the selectmen approved, and I'll explain why. And that's scenario 1. In this budget, the selectmen did stand their ground and want to include some expansion in some of the departments, because as you know, the message for 30 years has been level fund, level fund, level fund. They do want to promote a police officer to a sergeant's position. They're not adding a police officer. That was included in the 19 budget. So because we've been in limbo, we wouldn't be able to make that promotion anyway on July 1, because we don't know what's happening with all the uncertainty with the Triton budget. So if we reduce the police wage down by 10,000, the chief could be working on the promotional process this summer and maybe make that appointment in October or November, because it is a long process. It's not something you just post and hire somebody. So that preserves that position. The selectmen were insistent that they didn't want to materially reduce anything that they just added into this budget. The second one was the fire department. There was support by the selectmen and the finance committee for the addition of 2 full-time firefighters for the fire department. It's something that the chief has been asking for many, many years. So once again, I pointed out to the selectmen that, we're not going to be putting 2 new firefighters on the payroll on July 1. First of all, we'd have to start that process now, but with the uncertainty in the budget situation, we're not doing that. This defers the hiring until after January, which gives us time. The chief can start reviewing that job description, posting it, advertising it, all the testing and other things they have to go through. So it does preserve those 2, and we would do it. And the fire chief didn't think that was a bad idea. He agreed. We wouldn't be putting anybody on the payroll on July 1st. We were looking at reducing the tree department expense. That was additional money we put in. The snow and ice, just taking some of that additional money we put in, reducing those lines from the additional money. We had an article
Excuse me, that doesn't reduce those line items to zero, right? That's
Oh,
just-
no, we
Right.
put in additional amounts.
Right.
To try to get the
Okay.
snow and up,
Right,
snow and ice
so-
up. So that's all that does.
Just wanted to make that clear.
Yes,
Well, the stabilization will go to 0 to put in, because 50
Yes.
was what we were going to put in.
so OPEB was
Right.
125,000, so we'll put 25, take out 25 and continue to put the 100,000 into that trust fund. We were adding 50,000 to the stabilization, so we suggested not to add the 50,000 this year. And then to take the balance from free cash.
Okay, if you take 100,000 off from the firefighters, can you still put 2 on?
Well, without overtime, it's, the base, salary for the firefighters are about 51,000 each. So, that's where we came up with 100,000. So it's the base salary would be about 51,000.
For a year?
each, For one, yeah.
Yeah, so, but you would only put like 100, so you're only gonna have like 50
So we're
in there.
taking 100,000
out.
off, so.
And you're
it's starting
leaving,
in January.
you're leaving approximately 50,000 in there to pay them for 6 months.
Yeah, so we figured that by the time, there's also money that's in that wage budget for overtime that we're not touching or anything. But we looked at that and we said that should be fine, when you're looking at this. If you are looking at the 2 firefighters starting sometime after January, whether they start on the same day or not the same day.
And the total of the 314,319, if you add the 200,000 that we've already appropriated, that's where you come up with our
514.
operating assessment to 514,319. So that's where that number's. And then the other scenarios that you can see that were presented are various cutting methods that were proposed, even up to using all of our free cash for everything. But the selectmen decided on scenario 1 as the least painful.
So if Triton had voted the scenario 2, we would have had $90,000 more that we could.
Right.
Yeah, so I think I was upset at that they didn't go to the scenario 2. I mean, that, we're trying to sell that, and we're gonna cut 21 teachers, and blah, 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 and then all of a sudden it comes to 514, an additional $90,000 and change, above what they
Right.
were proposing at one point. So, it was just the process, I guess, that did upset.
No,
me.
It's a slap in the face, that's
Yeah.
all.
Well, worse than that, but that's a polite way of
Yes,
putting it.
exactly, yes.
I mean, especially when the 2 towns voted it down, they could have tried to stay with their plan, so to speak. Tell everybody they're gonna cut all these teachers, and they didn't cut any teachers. $90,000 when they cut 21 teachers anyway, but
Right.
whatever.
And the assessments, not only has the budget been going up every year, but of course the assessments have been going up. There's just no end in sight, and I can't buy the excuse of no state aid and all the administrative costs going up. All the towns have the same problem.
I mean, we're lucky we had that
Yeah.
the free cash there, because we would have been really in,
But it's not gonna be there next year.
I know, because Triton
And,
will take all of it, whatever's left. I
yeah,
would think.
and there doesn't seem to be any movement with Triton to take into consideration the plight of the towns. And granted, they're charter is for the children, but
But in all fairness.
the
again-
children have parents.
In all fairness, again, they did have a big increase in their special education and their transportation costs and stuff.
Yeah, but we
like
had,
that. So-
Yeah.
we had the
But we
same
have-
stuff on our side,
we
health
have, but I
insurance and
think-
everything else, you know what I
Okay,
mean?
I think that the school budget, not that I'm defending one or the other, but I think it's a little bit more complicated, there's a lot more moving parts in a Triton budget, you know, than there are, because you get
Then
all
the
these
town
special-
budgets, I don't think
Oh,
so.
I think so. Well, this is discussion for another time, but,
Yeah.
you know, I think that there are a lot of uncontrollable costs that they do have to deal with Triton. Granted, I'm not saying them because I think that they have to control their costs, you know, their increases in their contracts, because
That's 80%
that's
of their
a big
budget.
part of it, you
Yeah.
know?
But they don't.
But they have,
But they
well,
don't. They give 'em-
I am hoping going forward that they realize, because there's only so far you can go to the
What-
well, you know.
What
for-
job has 11 step raises, you know what I mean?
Well, teachers' contracts, it's not, I mean,
11
it's.
step raises? I
well,
mean,
don't
that's
know how
unheard of.
many, and they have, but a lot
We
of,
don't have 11, do we? How many steps do we
have
have?
to-
Like 6, maybe? 5?
if you really look at the teachers' salaries, and I know that, what's his name, Bernie Cullen has been putting out a lot of stuff out there, but he's, you know, I mean, I would say we're not on the high end, we're not on the low end, we're somewhere in the middle for regional school, and that teachers aren't getting paid excessively, you know, like, some would like to have it,
Well, think
you know,
about it,
from,
Peter. The salary they're getting is for 10 months.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is not new
I-
for any teachers.
No, I
in
know
any-
that,
any-
but so if
any-
you,
any
if you
district
put
anyway,
it
but-
down that they only have to work 10 months for that
Yeah.
salary,
And I believe they
Mhm.
collect unemployment during the summer, right? They can
they
do that.
can.
I don't
I
know
that
about the
in Winfield,
unemployment
They go
part,
collect the
but,
unemployment in the summer, so.
well, you have to kind of be competitive with what the
Oh, with other,
schools
yeah,
what
but
they're
I'm
going
saying,
to,
when
like,
you're saying what their salary is, when
Yeah.
you realize that they only have to work 10 months for that,
Mhm. I know,
that puts,
I
I
know.
mean, I have to work a full year for mine.
So do I.
And I'm still working so I can keep my house at 76 years old.
Yeah, I know.
So am I.
So me.
So, but you're going to put an
Yeah, so
article
anyway,
in?
Yes, and like I said, I'll be checking all these numbers. The selectmen basically said this was
Yeah.
the direction we were going,
Right.
and I'm working on an article, and, so that, you know, there may be a little calibration of some numbers in here, but, I gotta get that warrant done for next week. And
So when our free cash goes down to, what?
so I did have a little summary there, the fiscal department heads, about Karen and Sean and Sue Bailey and Amy and I went over everything, and we wanna just point out, some misconceptions about the free cash, and in 17, we did have, extraordinarily high, revenue from building permit fees, but that's one time, and it was really related to biolabs at the, Ipswich Bay Glass Facility. So there's a big state-of-the-art company going in down there, and you know, that resulted in really high building permit fees. So that comes in once, but it's not wise to be using your free cash to plug the budget. And we, as Larry said, spent $865,000 in the operating budget for the town, which includes, of course, all the school assessments as well. They're line items in our budget, so we do use free cash. But the financial advisors of the town don't recommend using more than 50% of your free cash in your operating budget, and to kind of use that because you do want that high fund balance, so you get a better interest rate when you borrow. And of course, we've got two big borrowings that are happening with $20 million that we're looking at borrowing now.
Yeah,
For
for
the two-
20,
For
25
our school
years.
project and the police and fire station, so,
Yeah, beyond what you were saying though, but free cash is also how much money is appropriated, you know, for the year, and then how much you might wanna save over budget, or some people will say a cost savings because the department was so frugal, but either one or the other, I don't know, like, percentage wise, cause I know the bigger departments probably have more fluff, or whatever you wanna call it, than some of the, you know.
There
like
is
the
no
smaller
fluff in those budgets,
well, I'm
Peter.
saying okay, I'll just say what's budgeted as an expense, you know, when they don't, cause that money's appropriated, but then, you know, it's money that's available because it wasn't spent down, and then, you know, one of the things we don't see cause when we look at the budgets, we're looking at them in March and April, and we don't see how what the final picture looks like.
No, you do.
depending on-
We do, we do. We get the
30.
final
Well,
picture.
After the fact, after.
Well,
the-
Isn't that much that goes into free
After
cash?
after the fact is
Well-
when the free cash is allocated.
Yeah, I know, but-
You've seen the year-end budget and how much
Yeah.
is left over.
It's not, there's
Why?
no,
There's not
other
many
than the
budgets
water
that
department
have,
has-
What are the, well, I'm not
has
gonna.
access, but we
say-
can't touch that.
Well,
Right.
for
Yeah,
example, so we're talking about unexpended budget lines. So one of the unexpected budget lines in 2017 was the stormwater. Why was the stormwater? Because there was a court case that was trying to defer Phase 2, the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, the Permit 2 that's coming out for a year. Well, we just got notified by the EPA that it's going into effect now, July 1st. So there's a lot of work we have to do. But we've been funding that because we've been under orders now for 2 to 3 years on Phase 2 that we have to upgrade all the stormwater. But we have to budget for that. We used only a little bit of it for a few things the stormwater coordinator did. But we know in 19 we're going to be using that. So that's an example of some of the unexpended budgets. Positions that weren't filled. We have a lot of hourly employees that don't get vacation time, so maybe if they took a couple of weeks off for vacation, they don't get paid, so we get some surplus money. If we didn't have, we budget for litigation. If we didn't have to utilize that line because of, we didn't have any active court cases, then we turn that money back to the town. So those are some of the examples of why we have some unexpended lines. Unemployment, we didn't have any employment cases and that we had to pay for, so I used that money to pay for the cost of the town meeting, and I'm using it now to do some transfers. So we had some money in there, unexpended. So those are examples of some of the unexpended lines. It's because we didn't need them, but we have to budget it because we don't even know.
there isn't that much.
And 12,000 in
Right.
unemployment's not much.
And we see the year-end summary for the last fiscal year, and then, like, even at this month, every month, we get a report of all the departments and how they're spending stuff. You can look at it and see if somebody is over there hoarding money by running the department all by himself instead of with 4 people. We see it all, and there's not a lot of money there.
Well, I don't know. It's-
Well, we do
It
know.
all adds up, though.
Yes, I mean it adds
up.
it adds up, but there's not a heck of a lot of surplus left. Okay, any other comments on the Triton budget assessment? Let's move on.
I remember just, let me interrupt you again, but I've been on the finance for a long time. I remember times that we were really, really lean and stuff. I remember going back when we had towns that took no raise and some of them took cuts, and we didn't have much surplus money or rainy days. So I know those times, and that's why I guess I'm a little sympathetic towards the school, because I don't think that they did things the right way. I really think that they should have not given those funds. But since they did, I don't want to see programs cut for kids and for kids. I know when my son, a few years ago when they were going for tough times, they cut Italian, they cut language programs. Now, they're talking about cutting instructional assistants and people that, and they only can go so far with that too, because they're mandated by the state, people who are severely, have some handicaps, they have to have these instructional assistants. But the question was raised is that anytime you make cuts for any of these instructional assistants, it hurts the quality of education of some of these students who need to have a little bit more instruction and things like that. So I'm just feeling bad for, because when everything is said and done and the dust is settled, these cuts are going to impact the school one way or the other. And that's what I feel bad for, and that's why I speak out, and
Right, but I mean, without the cuts, Rowley has been cutting and
well, I
level
realize, but I
funding.
know when times have been really, really
those
bad
people
with
have
Rowley
been
and stuff and
suffering.
like that. But I'm just,
The people there have not been able.
This has been a bad time for the town. I think a few years ago was a really bad time for the town, but not right now.
Yes, it
And I'm
is.
not, well, I mean, I guess everything is relative to how you look at stuff, but, you
I
know,
mean, when
I
every
just,
budget has been level funded for the last 10 or 12 years, and the prices of everything has gone
level-
up.
Well, I'm not gonna think it's level funded when you, I mean, you're putting me in a tough situation. When you get 2.2%, you know, increase.
We're not talking about salaries, I'm talking about
Okay.
expense budgets have been level funded for
Okay,
the
level-
last 10 or 12 years.
I don't think that's accurate. You know, I'd have to,
You want to go back and look at them?
For
See
fiscal
if,
18, the increase in the expenses,
you know,
not the salaries, increase in expenses, I think was around 21,000 some odd dollars.
For the whole-
previous, for the whole.
Whole town.
For the whole town.
Yeah,
For the previous year to
21,000
that.
for all the operating expenses for
Yes.
every single
Yes.
department?
yes.
The previous year, I think it was around 22,000. I went back through the whole budget,
Okay, well,
okay?
Yeah.
And looked
Yeah.
at what are the
And-
expense increases.
that's,
And one of the reasons
I'd
that,
have to look at that. 'cause
and
I
one
don't
of,
know what
one of the
I-
reasons that went up is
Yeah.
the fact that we have several elections this year.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
Yeah, so that makes that budget has to go up because you have to pay for, so that budget would increase. But other budgets, I mean, the cost of gas is going sky high. But they've got the same amount for gas as they had last year.
Well, I mean, is this, I mean, you're saying that the 21,000 is the cost of all their operating expenses have gone up in the course of 1 year?
For the whole
Expenses.
town.
Yeah, for the whole
Whole
town.
town.
Yes.
I went through each
Okay, well,
budget that they had and saw what their expense increase was for fiscal 18 and added it up over every department.
so
Did the same
what's the
thing.
percent increase then?
Was
You
probably
said you went through the percent
minuscule.
increase. Because you're
Who-
talking about a fraction, if you're talking about 21,000 for all the
Yeah.
expenses, and you're probably talking
Now,
about
now you're
a point.
now you're
008%
nitpicking on stuff.
No, I'm just saying
21,000.
because-
Okay,
I
the
don't know.
total expenses weren't 30,000. Go back and do the math.
Okay, we,
I make a motion, we move along.
yes.
Oh, so just one other thing on the town meeting warrant, so, yesterday, we were in communication with our recycling vendor, because, we have 2 bins that weren't at the recycling center on Saturday, and the reason why is when the hauler, JRM, was emptying them, they were stopped on both occasions with our bins by Mass DOT because there was recyclable items falling out into the street on Mass Highway, on that Mass, on Route 1. So, because they're rotted, they're completely rotted. And we don't have the money to buy new bins, new recycling containers right now. So, that combined with forecasted increases in recycling that are due to large global markets now have collapsed due to China not taking plastics and glass from the United States because they claim it's not clean, has resulted in basically no value at all. They can't move these, and they can't move plastic and glass. And in paper, mixed paper now is a very costly because of the sorting process, and while there is value in cardboard, there isn't value in just regular paper. So we're forecasting huge price increases, and I know every town around city, I've been following it all over the North Shore, is in this is in the same problem. So I informed the selectmen of this last night, knowing the budget was already approved, and we've level funded $8,510 is our FY19 expense budget for recycling, and I know offhand that that's not going to be enough. So they did ask me to incorporate funding and increasing the recycling expense budget by $10,000 into that warrant article, and that's coming from the free cash. Just want to let you know about that one as well.
And how much is it going to be for the town meeting? Is that around 3,000 or is it
Well,
more?
I'm hoping, we took a loss actually on the town meeting. The amount that I transferred in from unemployment didn't actually cover it.
Yeah,
We had a pretty thick warrant, so I'm hoping with a small warrant, the the cost of mailing and printing should be down, so maybe 3,000. I don't know, I'll have to look at that. Let's speak with
Yeah,
Amy.
the other thing to look at is the town clerk's expenses for another town meeting. I mean, doesn't she pay the registrars to be there to check us in and everything? To see, does she have?
She didn't mention, I mentioned the town meeting date to her. She
Yeah, I don't know.
Cost issues,
Yeah,
but I can ask her.
yeah, because I don't know if she has enough money in the budget this
Sure,
year to do that.
That would make sense. That she wouldn't,
Yeah, I don't know.
planning on
That and the constable too, does he?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
that's a
know.
good point.
I don't know,
Okay.
but I'm just wondering.
Well, yeah, it's a good point. She didn't mention it, but
Yeah,
I'll ask her.
ask her, please.
Okay, let's move on to item 5. Triton School Committee is requested to designate a selectman and a finance committee member to serve as town representatives to the district communications committee.
Question for that. Don't we already have somebody that's,
That's a district.
This is a new request apparently that came in.
but I mean, didn't we already, wasn't Peter already?
Peter's on.
No, this is an entirely new request apparently. It was on the selectmen's meeting.
Well, I know it was too, but I'm just
Right.
saying, haven't we been sending somebody to this
Yes.
So,
district?
but I think this is a fresh
This is
new,
like a
um,
different committee,
a
like
new
a
thing.
different committee.
a
that
new
we have.
committee, I guess.
Oh,
Yeah, this
A
is
subcommittee probably.
Okay, so I
subcommittee
just-
for discussing the assessment formula. And I would volunteer for that if no one else
Yeah,
wants it.
sure.
I'd volunteer for that if
Okay, do I have a,
I'm
Motion.
motion that Larry do it.
I'll second.
And Peter, you can tag along if you need to.
any other discussion? Do I have any other nominations? Okay. Can I have a vote on my being the Finance Committee representative to the DCC Subcommittee for Assessment?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion is carried. Or I'm elected or whatever. Confirm meeting dates.
So when are you having this special meeting next week?
I'm not sure yet. It depends on when I get the warrant done.
Okay.
So I'll
No, we
probably
meet
have
the
like
second
a
Tuesday, right? Would be the
have
12th.
to get a selectmen's meeting
That
pulled
work?
together fairly soon to get
Yeah.
that warrant signed.
When do you need us to meet, Debbie?
Well, you need to meet before town meeting to
Which is the
make your
18th.
recommendation to town meeting
Mhm.
on the warrant articles. So you have the 4th, the week of the 4th, the week of the 11th, so that's the 5th of the 12th. Then we might get some more 33B transfers in. So if you're meeting, it's convenient to get them into your meeting.
Okay, you want to try for the
12th
12th?
works for me. We can clean everything up
Yeah.
probably by
Okay.
that time, right?
Well, then we have to meet in July.
Yeah, but I mean for June anyway,
Yeah.
before town meeting.
Okay, so June 12th at 7:15. I guess we can figure out for July when we want to meet at June.
July, it has to be as close to the 15th as possible.
The 10th?
Yeah, well, before, no, it has to be after, right?
No, before the 15th.
You know, so that's the 10th.
Yeah, 'cause you don't want to do the 3rd, I wouldn't think, right?
No.
That'd be too soon, maybe.
Yeah, it's right before Independence
Right before the
Day.
4th? No.
Yeah. So you want to do the 10th then?
Yeah, let's
so
try
that's the
for the
only
10th,
choice we have.
July
Okay.
10th.
So, June 12th,
and July 10th.
July 10th. Okay.
Okay, anything else? Have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
One second.
First and second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.